Hello everyone! At this point I would like to thank our partner Veeam. Its backup for Office 365 software allows to keep your data safely. By clicking on the link in the description you will get a 15% discount on the product from Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365. So go for it guys, and let's start our INLEOCAST. Basically, everything needs an update right now, and this is not even the worst thing, right? So this is not even the worst thing. I think the worst thing is that it's happening always in the moment of your highest need. For example, the Windows is always updating when you want to get out from Office, or Mac is doing exactly this. You're turning it off, and it's like, it's time for updating, and your train is just in 5 minutes. So. And imagine that a lawnmower, and like a grill or whatever, it's doing exactly the same. So
my car charger. So I have an electric vehicle downstairs, and the wall charger for it, the wall plug. When I plug it in, I want it to start charging, and every time I go to it, it's like, oh, I got an update for the wall charger. I'm like, oh, all right. So then I got to wait 15 minutes for the wall charger to upgrade its firmware before I can start charging. It's But this is something, right? So we are customers, right? And as a customers, we should have some kind of way to a little bit push our vendor of anything what we have, to give us the software or hardware in versions that are more usable. They make us more happy every day if we're using them, but we usually don't have this device, and that's why we met today. Today with us is Chris. Chris, tell a little bit about yourself, to the people who will see us, who will listen us a little bit. What you doing? Who are you, man? Hey, who am I? What's going on here? Hey, everybody.
What's this guy?
Who is this person? My name is Chris Williams. I am an enterprise architect for a company called Worldwide Technologies, WWT. I've been an EA for WWT for the past 3 years. I've been in the IT industry for about 25 years, and I've done everything not related to development. So I've built data centers, I've done cloud migrations, I've virtualized platforms, I've done DevOps maneuvers, I've done everything with the exception of actually creating product. Recently, I've been tasked with I'm kind of in this DevRel dev advocacy mode right now, helping Worldwide expand its marketing and get better at doing outreach to community. I had a talk with my boss recently, and he was like, how you're an AWS hero? Oh, I'm also I'm one of 2 humans on the planet that is both an AWS hero and a VMware vExpert. The other human on the planet that has both of those accolades is my good friend Magic, who I'm talking to right now.
How it's happened, man? That there is a thing, you touched the subject that we want to talk about, but more or less, we want to talk about community a little bit and how the community is helping to, to reach. Like for this charger, for example, like we get this charger, it's good to have some kind of way to approach people who you sell stuff. And for example, like they're ambassadors, and they will tell you like the best users, right? Who are like family and friends, and they have way to tell you that your software or hardware is a crap. But let's say in polite way, in a closed room, and this gives out. In my opinion, it's amazing, But what about you? You talk with your boss. You will change a little bit from architecture to this community-driven management, or what? What is your goal?
Yeah. So the word that we use for that role that you're talking about is called the trusted advisor. There's a phrase in the VAR industry where like how do we become the trusted advisor to our customer, and you can either do that through notoriety. So when certain customers that we have at Worldwide, they ask, hey, I want Chris Williams because he's an AWS hero. I know that there's a standard for that accolade, and so therefore I want him on this project. So that I can work with him. So that is where you immediately gain your trusted advisor status. With other customers, I've had to be with the customer for a while. I've had to work with them, and then they realize, hey, Chris knows what he's talking about. Now I trust him to be that friend at the bar that tells me product A is crap, but product B is good, even though he might. And it's difficult in our position because sometimes the customer is thinking, okay, well, of course he's trying to sell me product A because he makes a better commission off of that, or he's selling me product B because it's easier to deploy, or whatever. But once you get that community, it's a friendship. It's half friendship. It goes beyond being a customer business owner relationship. It's like, hey, I trust this person to now give me the skinny on what I really need, not what I really want. And there is a distinction between the two.
Yeah, I think so. That you can make this. You can describe it this way: that you will not sell a crappy car to your neighbor, right?
Yes,
because
exactly.
Let's say dangerous situation happening after that, right?
Because you got a neighbor that's got a crappy car now. You don't want that.
Yeah, you don't want that, especially if it's yours, right? If he is buying that somewhere there, it's like, oh, wherever. He doesn't ask you, but if you're selling him that, it's your fault. But this push us a little bit to point of the discussion that I want to talk about. So that is community-driven marketing in IT. But from the perspective of, let's say, not the vendor itself, but the company like WWT or INLEO or any other companies that are out there and they are supporting communities. What do you think about it? Do you think that's going to be a thing? It's going to be something that is going to be important, or it is already?
Well, it is already important. I mean, having a good reputation as a person or as a customer or as a business is important. I mean, once you've lost your reputation, reputations are very hard to create, and they're very easy to ruin.
Yes, that's true. But I said about the community, because usually when we think about our customer base, from the perspective of legacy, let's say legacy marketing way.
Okay. Yeah.
That it's like community based, you're sending them, it's a one-way communication, most of it. After that, social media appears and you could get immediate reply, to the crappy stuff that you send, and people who have bad experience with that and all these things that marketers want to forget. But the community, it's like, in my opinion, it's like another step, right? So, because it's not a communication anymore, it's more like a relation. And how you build it.
So the way that I'm doing it, the way that I'm thinking about doing this is getting the worldwide folks internally that are good at a thing to go out to the user group or the meetup group locally that they want to talk about. And when I talk to these internal speakers and presenters, I'm like, do not make this a commercial. Do not talk about worldwide. The only thing I want to hear out of your mouth is, my name is Chris Williams, WWT Enterprise Architect, and this is the cool thing that I did that in no way relates to the company that I work for. That is just a cool, fun thing. If you want to learn more about it, you can email me at Chris username at wwt.com. But it's building your brand organically through coolness, not through a commercial, through fun nerd stuff.
You're starting from your person, you are Ignite, right? You're igniting people, so by yourself, right? And after that, you create on top of that something like awareness of the brand through the cool people, right? So basically, Ben, what I understood what you said to me, it's like you're hanging around with the nice people and you try to bring more nice people into the circle, right?
Yes, exactly.
So it's very, it sounds good. It sounds like a funny way to make a marketing. It's better than just making a fat conference, with the crappy food, with thousands of people that you absolutely don't know. It sounds more funny. It's one way, right? And another way. But when you're thinking about this community-driven marketing, so the values, what values it will bring to the IT company or maybe to the customer itself, right? Because I think that the relationship should work both ways, right? If it's one-way relationship, it's more like a prostitution, right? So let's say that two-way relationship, right, with your partner and customer, right? That should be worked out. So what the values are flowing from one side to another?
So I will use an example of a recent interaction that I had with a customer on the value that I see in it. So I went to a user group and I did a presentation on a CloudFormation template that I had been working on with another customer. I scraped out all of the proprietary information and I just talked about the cool thing that I built and the pipeline that we built for it so that it could, like, you make a change in dev, the automation checks happen, blah, blah, blah. And I showed them this cool CI/CD DevOps pipeline in the presentation. And I did not know that in the audience was another customer, somebody else that I had worked with in the past, but that I didn't know was in the audience, and they were watching it. And they reached out to me afterwards, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's so cool! Can I get the repo for this?" And so I had already shared it publicly on GitHub. So I told him, "Yeah, go to this link." He then leveraged that in his environment, in his company, but then reached back out to me after he made some improvements and modifications to it and did a PR for me. And so I accepted the pull request, and it improved my presentation. It improved the main repo for the code, and everybody learned from it. It was a very circular symbiotic relationship where everybody got something out of it. He got new code, he then improved it and made it better, and then that improved my presentation, and I'm now able to leverage that better in the future for the next customer.
So basically, sharing, it's more or less giving, but it's taking also something out from the way. When you think about company, in general, what I learned, I was in school a long time ago, so maybe that these fundamentals change over the time. But company needs to earn money, right? And the customer needs to spend his money in the way that is like the best, the most let's say balanced way.
Yeah, exactly.
And when it's entering, to this state of friendship, do you think that there is let's say, shallow ground? Like that something can happen that it's wrong, or
no,
they can abuse that situation?
Yes. If you were nefarious about it, you could abuse the situation. Yes, absolutely. I would like to think that I don't do that. So my response to that is, if a customer comes to me and says, "Hey, should I buy this?" I will give them my honest opinion and say, "No, you should buy this other thing." If it's more expensive, I explain why it's worth it. If it's cheaper, I explain why the first question or why behind the rationale for the value from it. So there have been times in my past where I have had a customer came to me and said, "I want to buy product X." And I could have made more money off of selling him product X or doing it the way that he wanted to do it. But after talking with them and figuring out what it is that they really needed to do and what it was that they wanted to get out of product X, I would then say, "No, you actually want product Y." And they're like, "But Chris, that's open source. You're not going to make any money off of this. Why would you sell me this?" I'm like, "Because this is what you need."
Yeah, exactly. And so it's about the trust, right?
Yeah.
And you build this trust over the relationship with the customer and also the people of the customer. But also, I think that it's very important that you look at this relationship through the, let's say, numbers. So you can see the value because the results are amazing. Why I'm saying that, because you're running vBrownBag, right? I'm running a Polish VMware user group. I'm running a AWS user group in Krakow. And there is a lot of relationships happening there. And it's just making it easier. And it's really, you see it by the value that it's thriving at the customer side. And if it's happening, then you know that you did the right job. And how are you knowing it? My example, for example, it's like over the years, at the customer, there are different people, right? Running like a head of IT or wherever, but all of them coming back. And so it's not only the relationship between me personally or somebody from my team, the cool guys, right, knowing each other, but also the company itself see the value in it. And I think that the proofs are there, because we cannot jeopardize this, maybe not jeopardize, but maybe overload a term of customer and the partner, right? Because it's going to be always there. It's going to be always something like, you know, you sell me stuff and I'm buying it from you. But when everybody see the results from it, then it's like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, having that kind of relationship is good. And if you don't have good results from that, then the relationship is cool. They're like, okay, they're great guys, but we spent 10 times as much money as we should have. And
exactly, too much steaks and sushi, you know, on the way. So I think there is another thing very important, you know, when you're building a community, this community needs to have a mission, right? Because community without mission is like pointless, in my opinion. So it's like, because you can always go for a beer, right? But to go for a beer with the reason, it's something, let's say, a little bit different. So how you will approach to this subject when you will, when you're thinking about your communities, when you're thinking about communities that you support?
So the AWS community is easy. It's cloud-based AWS stuff. If it's that particular slice of community is the reason for its gathering is built into itself. If it's either AWS or AWS adjacent. So I don't just have AWS speakers come on. I like to have an Azure speaker that talks about blob storage versus S3. I love to see the comparison and contrast versus the other clouds. So the main theme is AWS, but it's auxiliary. It's cloud and things adjacent to AWS. vBrownBag is a little bit more open-ended. It's just kind of it started off as a VMware certification podcast, how to study for your VCP, how to study for your VCIX, all of that stuff. But it has since morphed and changed into a much broader IT nerd show and tell cool stuff kind of thing. I honestly, vBrownBag is the things that my audience finds interesting. So I go out and I do a user survey. I'm like, what are the things you want to learn about? I've heard GitHub, I've heard Python, I've heard AWS, I've heard Azure, I've heard OpenCV. We just did one on Python and computer vision. I've heard a number of things, and so I keep a list, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I'll ping out on Twitter, hey, does anybody know anything about OpenCV? And somebody will say, yeah. I'm like, great. And so then I'll just irritate them until they present for me. So that's kind of the vBrownBag. And then my blog is literally just the stuff that I know I'll forget in 3 months. So I write it down into a blog post so that I can Google myself later and remember how crazy. I did something 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's you know, it's happening all the time. When we're running our blog, you know, it's always happening at the search engines. You know, it's like, okay, we found it in our own notes that nobody remembered. It's I
always do that. I always do that. I'm like,
that is something that
how do I do .n files? Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And I want to dig into it a little bit more, right? So you build those communities, and over the years, those communities resonate in your career somehow. And could you give some examples how to be close to the communities or run the communities, to be a leader, help you in your career and also in the company that you are in?
Oh, it's helped immeasurably. Like I didn't get into community to get better and better jobs, but because I have been in the community, that has happened by proxy. And I'm not saying that this happens to everybody or that I'm like special or anything. I'm not. By getting out there, by having the vBrownBag, by having the blog, by doing the user groups and everything like that, that gets me a lot more exposure and a lot more face time with a lot of different people. And so that and that familiarity can cut both ways. You can either become notorious, or you can become infamous, or you could become famous. And so I've been fortunate that I haven't screwed up, and I've been able to like just put out good content. Not myself personally, but by hosting the vBrownBag, I have a lot of really good people that have come on and shared their knowledge with the audience and everything. And so I've been able to leverage that to level up my own career, learning, having people on that are crazy smart. I love being the dumbest person in the room, and it's easy for me because I am dumb. The folks that I have on the show, the people that I work with are brilliant people, and it helps me to keep myself sharp and to be able to ask good questions when they get on the show. Is a joy. I really enjoy what I do. It also has been a benefit to my career, though.
About the companies that you work with. So when you build your teams, I imagine that it's easier to to find out the talents in the community when they are not so hidden, right? Because from what I saw in Poland, if you have huge community, there is a lot of marvelous people that you will never will have interface to meet, right? And the communities open the doors. It's like a key to meet people.
It's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wonderful actually. And to open this, it's not only give to you, right? But also it's easier for you to to gather a team. And this team not necessarily needs to be the team from your last work, right? Or the last project. This can be absolutely new people, but you met them through the community. And, they prove themselves a little bit different way, let's say. And what about you? You work with the people that you met in community. They work in companies that you were in that helped everybody around you?
Yes. So, If I'm understanding the question correctly,
sorry, maybe
you're asking me if the community has helped teams get together outside of just work related stuff. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, no, and that's one of the things that. Sorry,
the cat.
Yeah. That's
have on their agenda.
Well, as soon as they hear me talking, they start making a bunch of racket in the corner over there.
Yeah, my kids will come soon. Don't worry. They're like cats. They also have a different agenda. No worries.
The folks that I work with the folks that I've interfaced with in the community, there is a circular kind of like relationship with the projects that I've worked on from a company perspective. And if I'm moving from one company to another company, I will always know somebody that has worked at that company first to see if it's going to be a good fit for me. So I'll talk to the Boston user group is one of the largest AWS user groups on the planet. So I have like 8,000 people that know me, and I can go, hey, does anybody know about the internal structure at company Z? And they'll be like, yeah, that place is awesome. Or no, that place is terrible. You don't ever want to work for them. And then I kind of get the inside scoop. And I will do that for them as well. They'll come to me and say, hey, do you know anybody that works over here? And so I'll reciprocate and I'll give back in that manner as well. It's kind of like a little internal glass door. That actually tells good information.
Actually, it's a trustful, right? So, so when we think about from the perspective of the company, when the company is helping or building a community, there is a sourcing of talents. That's the one very nice flow that it's coming after this support. But also, let's say, building your own brand, like personal brand, the brand of the company. And what else? What else we have there? We have a sales there. Do we? Because in INLEOCAST, it's more or less about case studies, and I want to find a way to show to the people, not only from IT, itself company, but for example, there is a bank, right? There are guys from financial institution. I love them to have some communities. I love them to go to my bank provider and tell them what I don't like and what I love. You know, I want to give them feedback, wherever the feedback is.
Right.
But many companies, you know, not only from IT section should, in my opinion, build communities to have the, let's say, more direct communication method with their customers. And do you think that it's that this can be done over the community?
I think it's difficult. I think that's something that is so. When you ask, can that be done? My immediate thought was like, well, yeah, every company has a Twitter account, and that can be either awesome or completely horrible. There's no in between, and social outreach into community is it's difficult. It's something that's really hard to do. How do you personify a company to make them like more palatable to the community?
You know, but you know, in the end, there is a thing, because you can build your own communities, you know, and do everything from scratch, and it's like a hell of the job. I think it's like super hard. There is many examples of IT vendors that they wanted to build a community from the scratch, you know, and this was total failure. Not because they had a bad product or something like this. It's not just, like I said, without mission, let's say the communities doesn't came up on the surface. So there is a thing, you can build your community, but also you can use the communities that are existing. And for example, I will give you an example what I had in my mind. So we have a AWS user group meeting. There's a guys from, let's say, this financial institution. They talking about CI/CD pipeline to changing our web or mobile application, wherever. And there is guys standing up, right, and saying like, so you are the guys who are breaking me every 3 weeks, you know, my portal, you know, and I cannot make a transfer money in Saturday night. And everyone's like, oh my God, what happened? And the guy just coming in, you know, we are Polish, you know, so it's straight through, it's in our blood, right? So this guy is coming to this person and telling him, it's not because I don't like you, it's because I cannot have a party in Saturday night. Could you move it to Wednesday? just it's like, you will have a day sleep, you know, night sleep, and also I will have my party, right? Without the problem that my card doesn't work. And you know that. And they didn't create like financial institution community.pl, right? They just use AWS user group. Actually, they didn't thought about it, right? But it happened to be the best feedback they ever had. Now they move it to Thursday. It's still, it's better than Saturday, right? But the Thursday is also not so good, but better than Saturday. And what I'm thinking about it when I'm thinking about communities, or IT companies or not IT companies, but generally the customer, when you think about community, you can have, let's say, less hate, maybe constructive feedback. Right. Yeah, they're going to be hate.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
It's how do you get that valid, legitimate, constructive feedback that actually will make the product better through the mountain of trolls.
Yeah, imagine about the Twitter account, right? So if you open your Twitter and you just make a horrible mistake, right? By, for example, you know, running in Saturday evening update of Oracle databases, you know, in your bank, and nobody could pay the card for the dinners.
You will get an avalanche of bad press.
Yeah, it's like, but it's not about that, right? I think the community is about positive feedback. So it's not only because hate is cheap, right? Everybody will give you tons of hate. It's super cheap. Right. But positive feedback, it's something, for example, my people thrive for. So we design stuff, and after that, you know, if we screw something, then of course somebody will tell us that, okay, you did it very wrong, right? But positive feedback, it's easier to be done, you know, so to get during the community event. And what do you think about it as also the method of, that's why I ask you, the method of communication between the brand and the, let's say, aware users, you know, like users that they're aware of the problems behind the scene?
Yes. So Pluralsight actually did something like this with me directly. It It's better to always have a face-to-face communication, and it's better to reach out to them and have legitimate back and forth discourse. Community gatherings and meetups are a great way to do it. One unique way that Pluralsight did it with me specifically was I put in some so like there was a the little feedback box for I was watching a class on something, and I said, hey, it would be better if you did this way. Their product team reached out to me and set up 3 Zoom meetings to the first meeting to capture the issue, the second meeting to show me the MVP of how they address the issue, and the third meeting to show me the finished product after the issue had been pushed into production.
Okay, but the most important question, they give you credits?
They did not give me credit. I mean, they might have put a byline in the repo or something like that. But
exactly, you don't need to be, in the titles, right? In the end, right? But there is a very small box called "Thank you."
This feature brought to you by Chris Williams, by Mistwire.
That's the thing, right? You could feel better. I think that's not only taking and giving also.
Yeah, no,
giving much.
It's fine. I mean, it was a legitimate thing that they were working on, and they fixed it. And I'm sure that I wasn't the only person that had mentioned it. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't have reached out to me. But that was a really good way of trying to separate the wheat from the chaff and get some good community feedback from that.
I had right now idea actually, to run something like this during the AWS user meeting, like beta testers application program, right? Because it's not only, or AWS Heroes or wherever vExperts or guys like that should get their hands on labs, but also the, let's say, users who have more experience than us, right? We're just talking heads. We just know how to connect people and hang out with the cool guys, like you said, like I said about what you said.
We are good human routers, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, human routers, and I think that there is a lot of very wise people who could, through the community, have access to the early product and tell you, like, constructive feedback. So let's sum it up. So we have this sourcing of talents, constructive feedback. We have personal and company brand awareness. What we have more about it, like the community-driven marketing, because I have this impression that the subject of community-driven marketing is something like happening, but it's like a Yeti, right? So everybody talk about it, but not many companies or people are really doing it, or doing it being aware of doing it, right? So so it's like like an iceberg, tip of the iceberg.
Correct. Yeah.
What you think about it? Yeah.
So I think that that is the new role that I've actually just created for myself within Worldwide. I'm not going to go. So I have a 12 steps plan to get the name out into the community. I'm not going to give away the secret sauce because I'm working on it to see what's going to happen. But there is so much value in community driven. I don't want to say marketing, because sometimes marketing the word itself gets a bad rap. Yeah, PR. Getting the name of the company out into the community as a trusted advisor, is so important. And I have no problem doing it for Worldwide, because it's a good company and they have amazing people internally that do a lot of really, really good work. If I was working for a company that was kind of shady, I probably wouldn't want to do it. But
that's also proving something, right? If you want to go to the community and telling them, let's say, people know that you are an honest person about the fact that the company, it's let's say, a pretty good deal and there are good people inside, then you need to be sure, because otherwise you put your personal brand.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't have volunteered for this role if if I was concerned that it would impact my own reputation in any way. Because you and I are both AWS heroes. There's a lot of weight. There's a lot of gravity behind that statement. People rely on us to make good statements, to say, okay, if we say company X is a good company, and then a bunch of people find out that it's not, our reputation goes to hell.
Yeah, our Twitter will look like this company's Twitter. We don't want to do it, right?
Yeah, we don't want to be a commercial for anybody. We just want to be a good source of legitimate, honest information and be a trusted advisor to everybody. So that's super important when you're doing
what you're saying that the trusted advisor term, it's having a huge gravity in what you are saying. Like, this is the thing that every company should build their community-based PR on top of it, right? So first of all, think about what you want to say, how it's going to impact your customers in the long run, not only with your friends, let's say, sitting in these companies,
right?
Or people that your colleagues, right? With everybody, with the people after them. So more or less, it's like it's like a legacy selling.
Legacy selling?
So you need to think about it as a legacy. So what you will left in those companies after this decision needs to be made, right?
How your legacy will be after you've left, leaving a legacy. When you said legacy, I thought you meant like old code. I was like,
no, or old infrastructure, right? Risk servers, right?
You don't want legacy code. What are you talking about?
You don't want legacy code. What are you talking about? Cloud native, man. Cloud native.
It's all Kubernetes all the way down. No, you're absolutely right. You want to leave a good legacy within the company, so that the next time you want to leave an engagement or a project or a company with everybody thinking warm thoughts of you. This person did us right. This person saved us money. This person made the project go straight. That's how I try to run every engagement.
Okay, so this is a thing that I like walking around all the time, the community driven PR and how to do it. But when you're thinking about long run, and there is a huge movement of DevRel, like you said, so relationship with internal, let's say, developers, right? So, or the people who create stuff.
Yep.
And there is let's say that community dev, right? So we will develop the communities, but I think we will use pretty the same principles, but the direction will be different. So, the direction of DevRel is inside the company, right? And the community-driven PR, it's more or less outside of the company, but the values are, in my opinion, they seems pretty similar.
I would agree with that. It's a consistent. It's maintaining a consistent message both internally and externally. DevRel, dev advocacy, dev avocados, whatever you want to call them. Their job is to fix communication pattern issues, whether they be from product manager to developers or developers to consumers. The consumers out in the field that are trying to like learn how to use their product better. Oh, you want an API that does XYZ. Okay, let me bring that feedback loop back and then provide that circular feedback loop of good recommendations, not just crappy social media.
Yeah, I think we should call it a DevCom, because everything with dev it's right now, right? So we need to dev something, right?
DevSecCom. DevSecOpsCom.
Never mind. There is more.
Okay,
but imagine that with everything, it's coming a paycheck, right? So with every
new
DevOps
word.
Sec.
Yes. In that case, I'll load it up.
Yeah, we need to load it up. So yeah, I think this is it, man. And this is the subject I want to talk about, because exactly the case study of it, it's like you need to think through your organization, what the organization wants to present to the world.
Yep.
And it needs to align to the communication that it's inside. So the mission of your company needs to be present to the community. And you can, let's say, use the community as a method to gather a feedback, but more constructive feedback. I think this is the values that are most important right now with this PR through the community.
Yeah, and to your point, it can't be a one-way communication. It has to be get information, provide feedback. The way that Pluralsight did it with me was perfect. Gather the information, show me how my recommendations affected change, and then show me like a finished product where they actually took that information and made it better for everybody.
There is also, I think that when you think about communities, there is always, at least in my head, is appearing open source. And
yes.
I think it's like taking care of the community is like an open sourcing of your time for helping people, because it's the same thing, right? So somebody's paying for your time to support community. And this is like open source, but not named open source because you not create a code, right? But you create, let's say, relations a little bit. And I think that the world is going this way. So every big company, name it, everybody on the top, it's outsourcing something, open sourcing something, right? So
open source relationships.
Yeah, open source relationships.
Oh, sorry.
So the same dev. It's a little bit dev there. So the same is here. I think that you need to have resources. You need to, let's say, give the resources to some people like you, for example, or me. We need to have resources to run communities. And this is like open sourcing our time to community, which is nice. The same, I think, like open source. I don't know. I never contribute because I'm not a developer. I have no idea about the programming languages and all this magic. But, yeah.
I see what you did there. Magic.
No. Recently, one of the guys wrote me Mr. Magic. I was like, okay, that's cool.
You'll go with that. Nice.
Yeah, I go with that. Okay, cool. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
And I hope we will see each other. You going for Barcelona this year?
I will be at Barcelona this year. The vBrownBag is coming on site to do our tech talks. We're gonna do 4 tech talks per hour for 4 days. We'll see how it goes. It's gonna be
24 hours.
It's no 8 hours a day. It's gonna be very hectic.
8 hours a day. Yeah, it's gonna be hardcore, man. So you're going for Barcelona for VMworld. I'm sorry. Oh my god, I just make a faux pas.
VMware
Explorer. Yeah. Hopefully we met each other. Today I tried to register, but well, I didn't finish. It was a process. It is a process, right? So
it is a process. And now we're not alumni anymore, so now we have to register just like everybody else.
Yeah, it's like no red carpet. It's not VMworld anymore. So basically, the vBrownBag, but the let's say sign in, it's closed, or you can submit some subjects for the talks, or are already closed. You have entire agenda there.
We are booked. We have all of our slots filled. Nice. People can still submit CFPs, and if we have a slot that opens up at the last minute, then we'll put them in there. But I'll get you the link for the CFP so you can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, and, definitely I will put it there.
And obviously, you and I will both be at AWS reInvent in November.
Hopefully,
December.
If COVID will allow us, right? Because you never know.
They need to put the masking back in place.
I saw that there is no masking, so it's going to be hell of the 2 days event, because
exactly, because everybody's going to get sick on the third day. I'm going to be wearing my mask.
All right. So, Chris, thank you very much. It was 20. Yeah, it was 20 already in INLEOCAST. Maciej Lelusz here. I was talking with Chris Williams, king of vBrownBag, emperor of AWS communities.
Boy.
US and A, like we are saying in Europe, like everybody knows that, right? So thank you very much, and have a great day or afternoon or evening, because right now we are a global podcast, right?
We are. Have a wonderful day, Maciej. Thanks very much, man.
Yeah, thank you very much.